I have friends that have partners that they're dealing with difficult issues at home and they have daughters and the husband just like won't budge and like it can be so frustrating and it can really make you feel like pretty helpless because you're like maybe if I can just find a way to like explain if I can just come up with like the right metaphor so that they can understand like what my inner world is like.
I will tell you to get a divorce. um, I am under the belief that you simply you cannot make someone have empathy. You cannot teach someone empathy. And I think that's what a lot of men lack. They don't, these things have never affected them and they've never had to try to understand the effects of them. And if you can't like put yourself in somebody else's shoes, which is literally empathy, they're not going to care. And why what is the inclination for men to change when it means more work for them to do so? You know, it doesn't, I'd rather kind of keep it as it is because I'm still going to benefit from it. It's still very, very beneficial for them to hold the beliefs that they have and to live the way that they live in these very gendered, stereotypical roles. I Because the problem is we tell women, "Oh, just reward him for putting the dishes away. Be sure that you're, giving him positive reinforcement." And this is still back on the woman. Even though it's not the woman's problem, it's still back on her to have to figure out and manage and do and push for and beg for. There is no amount of communicating that's going to likely change someone's mind that doesn't see what you do as valuable, which is a very big problem. I don't believe a lot of men value or respect women because, again, they've been taught from a very young age that women are here and men are here. They are below them, they are beneath them in all values, in all ways. They don't deserve the same respect. The value that they contribute is less than what men do. They don't bring enough to the table. My work is harder. My work is more important. You can't make someone value you. You can't make someone respect you. And I have a hard time with people like, "Oh, well, when I decided to leave was when he really turned around." Why the fuck did it take him that long to give a shit? Why did it take him so long to see you as important? All this time he didn't care. I have a hard time believing that right now in this instant, he's just going to fully develop and change as he who he is as a human. Like I don't think there's changing those people unless they come to you and they say, "I want to go work through my shit. I want to go to therapy. I want to join groups. I want to read books. I want to take the initiative." You I can't force somebody to change, and nobody can.
I do think men are capable of change, 100%. I think all
Yeah,
people
of
are.
course.
But I think to your point, Abby, you can't make somebody change on your timeline. So if you're like at the point where you're like, cool, I now can only, this is where I'm at, and they're just like not interested, there is nothing I think you can do to make somebody change on your timeline. Unless their world is not being touched by it, then why would they really like care about it so much?
What if you're listening to this podcast, you're fed up, you maybe have just had a baby, you're going through it and you're like you're ready like to do something, but maybe some of the like conversations that you've had like haven't worked. Like what do you guys recommend? Like what do we do other than get a divorce cuz I mean, believe me, as a divorced person, I fully support that as well. But like, not everyone is mentally there yet. It takes
Sure.
time to get like where you're mentally there.
I know that, like, from the time a woman decides she's gonna leave to the time she files is 2 years. There's a lot of time, and even before that, there's a lot of time that women spend trying to mend things in various ways. Whether that's individual therapy, we know women are much more likely to seek therapy themselves than men are. Lots of stigma for men, naturally. They're still, you know, struggling with that. I don't know what you do when you're not ready to leave, but you have exhausted all other avenues. You have communicated and communicated, and you've tried fair play, or you've tried counseling. He's tried counseling, or maybe he hasn't. But again, like, you can't force somebody to go to that. You can't force somebody to want to be better for you. There's no magic formula to finding a good man. There's just not. There's just not. It's not a magic thing. You can't do this, this, and this, and everything's gonna be, rainbows and unicorns. The things that, like, I did notice about my husband, the conversations we did have, the things that I was able to look back on about what I realized made him a good communicator, a good partner, somebody who was willing to hear me out and validate me and not get defensive on things. But there's so many questions that nobody ever taught us to discuss. And that's what there's another gap there, because women are just taught, again, get married, have babies, get married, have babies, get married, have babies. But what does that mean for everything else in between? Do you want to have kids? What's your
Mm.
political stance? How were you raised? What is your parenting style, going to be like? And you can, if you're not parents, you're in the early stages of dating, can't really say, what's your parenting style? You could say, like, what were your parents like?
Mhm.
How were you raised? And because that's, I think, the number one thing couples fight and get divorced about is, like, finances and, like, the way people raise their children and the parenting differences. But for the women that are stuck in these positions, again, because there are a lot of them, they're probably the majority of my followers, is what I tell them the most is that this isn't your fault. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's not because you're not communicating in the right way. It's not because you're not doing enough. You are doing enough. But you cannot force a horse to drink. You can lead him to the water. You can't force him to drink. So at some point, it has to boil down to you and what you believe to be best for you in this one short life that you have. Only you can make that decision. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you got to get divorced. Like, I will say, like, I believe in divorce. I think divorce, should absolutely happen, and it should be much more easily attainable than it is. It shouldn't be as costly as it is, but it's also why I'm a proponent for prenups and postnups. But there's no easy answer. I just want women to know that it's not that they can communicate any better or any differently, or that there's some magic formula that will find you a good man or change a good man or change him into a good man.
It's heartbreaking to watch,
Mhm.
women sacrifice themselves in the way that they do, especially when they have kids, because then
Mhm.
it becomes like a sacrifice for the children, or at least
Yeah.
that's how we kind of justify it in our heads.
Since it's very hard to get out of the weeds once you're in them, and there is no
Mhm.
secret conversation to
Mm-mm.
figure this stuff out. The action step is, while we're raising our new sons and daughters, is to be a lot more forthright with, hey, these are some really great qualities to look into in a partner. These are some really great questions to actually be asked about. And
Mhm.
maybe if we can just, of course you want to be the change you want to see, be the woman that you hope your daughters and sons, would like to be with. That could probably have the most profound influence, I would
Mhm.
imagine.